Big 2025. Oh, let's stop it. Stop it. Bop it. Fuck around. Cock it. Oh, one nigga gonna live to on the big round. Ah, fuck it.
Financial literacy course for you. So
Financial literacy. Fuck it.
At least 25-30 hours. This course took me weeks to get through. Like, here are my notes. It is 109 pages long. It is the most comprehensive personal finance, financial literacy course I have ever taken. And probably because it is an accumulation of the past 10 to 15 years of knowledge. It literally covers the foundations of
this bitch face looks so fake, bro.
But it is not enough.
Like, is this what Koreans want to look like?
For you just to look.
Is this what Koreans aspire to look like? Like,
talk. So I've also included little assessments throughout the video as well, since it's such a long course. So if you can answer all of these questions, you can consider yourself to be financially literate by the end of this video. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Let's first talk about the structure of this course. There are 16 units in total.
golly, and then I fuck up.
To save. Unit 3 is financial goals. How do you set financial goals? What is a SMART goal? And how does that relate to your money personality? And how to calculate your net worth. Then there's loans and borrowing. How do loans work? How does debt work? What happens if you file for bankruptcy? Unit 6 is on insurance. Unfortunately, lots of things can go wrong in life, and there are lots of types of insurances to try to do it. Unit 7 is on investment. How much do you need to retire, and how do you invest? Then we're moving on to scams and fraud. There are many trickeries in life.
Like, oh, bro, nigga, what am I doing wrong?
Taxes. No need
I
to
do. It gets to a point,
How do you
dude.
calculate whether an employment opportunity is worth it or not? How do you choose between different offers?
Bloom.
All the different types of banks and the different types of bank accounts. It also includes a crash course on interest rates and inflation. Unit 13 is
Go on
car
here,
buying.
fuck it.
Apparently, car buying is also basically one of the most trickiest
I want to hear this shit a little bit more.
And there's houses. When is it worth it to rent versus buy? How do you? And finally, Unit 15 and Unit 16 is on future resources. Ready? Alright, let's go into budgeting. First off, what is a budget? A budget is a plan that helps you manage your money. It shows you how much money you have, how much money you need to spend on things, and how much money you can save or use for other goals. Having a budget can help you make smart decisions with your money and avoid problems like overspending, debt, or running out of money. In essence, you can think of a budget as a plan for the money that's going to be coming in and what you're going to be doing with it. I'm going to put on the screen now a very simple budget sheet that Khan Academy provides. This is a monthly budget, and people can have like super fancy spreadsheets and things like that. Again, this is a very simple one, but they all work essentially the same. You want to keep track of your income in some fashion, whether that be in paychecks or side incomes. Then you want to decide what you're going to be doing with this money. A very popular rule that people like to follow is the 50-30-20 rule, which means that you want to allocate 50% of the money you earn into needs. This will be like groceries, rent, transportation costs. 30% into wants, things that are nice to have but not necessary, things like going out to eat, watching movies. And finally, 20% into savings. This will include saving for an emergency fund in case you have any medical emergencies or personal emergencies, like getting laid off, or if you just want to help someone. It also includes saving monies for bigger purchases, like maybe you want to own a house or a car, or you could be saving money for investment for retirement. Here's an example of a budget worksheet. For example, the money that you're bringing in amounts to $3,000. Also make sure that when you're calculating the amount of income, you're looking at after-tax dollars, since that's the amount of money that you actually spend. The needs over here adds up to $1,780, which is 59% of our income, and this is actually higher than our target goal of 50% of income. The wants total to $795, which is 27% of income, and savings totals to $425, which is 14.17% of income, even though our target is at 20%. So in this scenario, if we want to follow the 50-30-20 rule, it looks like that we need to decrease our needs a little bit in order to bump up our savings. As a little exercise, if you look at this budget sheet, what do you think this person can do in order to decrease the amount of money they're spending on needs to boost their savings? Write it in the
Groceries.
comments. Okay, so now let's think through this together. Looking into this needs category, all these things are definitely actually necessary, but there are some things that you can potentially do in order to decrease the cost. Rent is going to be something that you can consider downsizing into a smaller apartment, but that's something that's probably a little harder to change. You might have to wait until your lease is over. Now let's look at utilities, cell phone, and internet. So you definitely need to do these things. But what you can actually do is actually try calling them up and just being like, hey, like I'm really looking to stick into my budget right now. Like this is outside of my budget. What can we do in order for me to decrease the amount that I'm using? On the side of utilities, they may have like certain plans for you where they can give you certain suggestions for this. And for things like cell phone and home internet, they may have better deals for you because they would rather retain you as a customer than you potentially needing to go to competitors. Sometimes all you have to do is ask. Car payments and insurance, probably harder to decrease as well, but also for groceries, you can potentially decrease the groceries by looking at different stores around you, seeing if you can buy things at different stores and buying things when there's discounts. There's a concept called per unit pricing that can be really helpful when you're considering what it is that you want to buy. It's basically telling you how much you're paying per ounce, per pound, or per item. Like say if you're buying laundry detergent pods, how much are you paying per pod or per cycle of laundry? There are so many different types of laundry detergents available when you look at a grocery store. So if you're not like super picky about it, if you look at the per unit pricing, that can help you determine which of these items is actually the cheapest per usage. It may not seem like a big difference, just a few cents difference, but if it's something that you use as a staple, it can actually add up to hundreds of dollars of savings. So by implementing some of these decreases in cost for your needs section, you can take that money and put that into savings to achieve our 50-30-20 rule. This rule is not a hard and fast rule, and you can adjust it based upon your living situation and things like that, but it is a really good place to get started. And for you to go through your bank account and audit how much you're actually spending on each of these categories in relationship to after-tax income. Now let's talk specifically about why it's so important to save money and what you should be doing with your savings. Saving money is very good for three primary reasons. The first one is so that you can save up for an emergency fund. It's generally recommended that you maintain 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months meaning the amount of money that you need in order to survive that month. Going back to that previous example, if we've managed to balance our funds so that our needs is $1,500 per month, then at the very minimum, you should have $4,500 saved. And the reason you want to do this is because life happens, shit happens. You might get laid off, you might have a medical emergency, somebody that you're very close with, your friend or your family might have a medical emergency. There's a lot of shit that can happen in life, and you want to make sure that you have the amount of money to cover your basic necessities for at least 3 to 6 months in order for you to get yourself on your feet again. That is the first thing you should be saving for, and you should not be touching this money until you really need it. Now, after you save your emergency fund, you can think about the two other types of savings. The first one is for bigger purchases like a car or a house, and the second one for investments and saving long-term for retirement. These categories are not necessarily completely separate either. Like for example, if you want to buy a house, that can also be something that you consider to be an investment that you're saving for long-term. A pro tip is that you can actually create a separate savings account for each of the things that you're saving for. Like if you want to save for a laptop, a car, and a yacht, you really want a yacht, you can actually create a separate savings account in your bank account. You can usually do this for free with a savings goal for each of these accounts. And when your paycheck comes in, you can actually automatically redirect that money by how much money it is that you're putting into each of these different savings accounts. But speaking of savings accounts, and we'll actually talk more about different types of bank accounts later as well, but it's useful to know that there are different types of saving accounts. You should consider things like the initial deposit requirements, any access restrictions, how often it is that you can take money out, any overdraft fees if you're not maintaining a certain amount of money, and also interest rates. Interest rates in this context is kind of like the bank giving you a reward for in holding on to your money. So most savings accounts will give you a certain amount of interest. It's usually not that much, be like single digits, 3%. So if you put in $100 and interest rate is 3%, then they will actually give you $3 in interest. And now you have $103 without having to do anything, which is pretty magical. We're not going to talk about inflation yet. Now let's talk about credit. Since this course is based on the US system, there might be like a different scoring system in the country that you're in, but at least in the US and Canada, credit scores are between 300 and 850. If you're in the high 700s to the 800 range, that's considered a really good score, and you can get approval for most loans that you need and lower interest rates. If you're between 600 and 700, that's considered decent. It's not great, but it's not really bad. So you may be paying a little bit higher interest rates. And if you're below 600, that's considered pretty bad. And you might just straight out be not approved for loans, or you just get a really high interest rate. So what exactly is a credit score? A credit score is a measure of how long you are in the. This will include how long you have credit against, like credit cards or student loans, how much money you owe, whether you make your payments on time, if you've ever filed for bankruptcy. There are all different factors that go into calculating it. It's quite complex how it is. But overall, it's supposed to represent how trustworthy you are to lend money to. So say you might have a bad credit score. What can you do in order to improve your credit score? Luckily, there are ways, and I'll go through them in a descending order of importance. So the first thing is that you need to pay your bills on time. Your payment history represents 35% of your credit score. So if you have any loans or credit card debts, you should be paying that on time. The second is credit utilization. So this is something that I do know, but when I first looked at it, I was actually really surprised. This accounts for 30% of your credit score, and it means the fraction of your credit usage. For example, if you have a credit card limit of $10,000, it's actually best to spend as little of it as possible. Like say if you spend like $100 only, then you have a credit utilization, which is really good. That is not to say that you shouldn't have credit cards, but you still want credit cards because you want to show a history of having credit, but you want to show a history of not using that much of it. I don't know, it's sort of weird, but that's how they calculate it. And speaking of credit history, that accounts for 15% of your credit. The longer the history of data they have on you of good money habits, then the more confidence people would have on your ability of paying back the loans that you take. And finally, the two last categories account for about 10% each. The first one is the type of credit. It's generally good to have a mix of different types of credit, like between credit cards, maybe like a mortgage, loans, whatever. I don't think you should go and like get more debt and like do that intentionally, but you know, it's just if you do, it kind of looks better for you, although it's only like 10%. And the last one is new cards. So there's this concept called an inquiry, and there's like hard inquiry and soft inquiry. Basically, like every time you get a card, it would be a hard inquiry. So the lender would be doing a hard inquiry to check your credit report. And every time that they do that kind of inquiry, it actually hurts your credit score. On the other hand, you have something called a soft inquiry. This would be something just like checking your credit score. Or if you're trying to like, you know, rent a house, they might do like a soft inquiry on your credit score. This kind of checking does not impact your credit score and is okay. So generally speaking, try not to get like several different new credit cards all at the same time. Kind of space it out. Now, another thing that is interesting about credit scores is what doesn't help you with your credit score. And the big one that is very interesting is that income has nothing to do with credit score. It doesn't matter how much money that you make. It's only about your ability of handling the money that you have in relation to making payments, not the size of the payments that you're making. Things like employment has nothing to do with that as well, although if you have an employment, you're probably more likely to actually be so don't be ostrich if you don't already know your credit score. Go check it out using something like Credit Karma or your bank or whatever. And if you have a pretty bad credit score, then make a plan and follow these steps to improve it. There's a lot of free resources out there, videos that can teach you how to build up your credit. And just generally speaking, this course is about foundational things. So if you want to like dive deeper into any of this, it's best to actually look at specialized courses where like videos and resources about these topics. Now, before I move on to the next unit, credit cards are one of those things that are such a double-edged sword, depending on how you use it. On one hand, it's actually good to have a credit card because you can have a credit, and it's also super nice. Plus, a lot of them come with really good rewards and cashbacks, especially in the US. I've lived in different places, and all of them usually have some sort of rewards for your credit card. But in the US, some of them are like insane. Some people use credit card points to have like entire vacations paid. But if you are not responsible with your money and you cannot use your credit card responsibly, what could potentially happen is a massive amount of because it's so easy to use, you just swipe it and it's on credit. Like you don't even have to have money in your bank account, it's so easy to spend that money. A lot of people end up overspending and realizing like, shit, I don't actually have that money to pay back my credit card. And that's when you realize that crazy interest rate starts kicking in. Like, let's look at this credit card, for example. This is called a Schumer's box, where by law, people who are trying to get you to sign up for a credit card, they have to show this to you. When things are going good and you're making back your payments on time every single month, you know, everything is great, you're getting your cash back, your rewards, all these good things. But when you start missing payments and start accumulating debt, this is when the scary things like annual percentage rate, APR, starts kicking in. So say if you have like $100 and your APR is like 20, and you're potentially paying up to 28.99% of the debt that you owe just on interest alone. So if you already can't pay back your initial amount of money and you have so much interest building up on that as well, and it's very quickly that you're digging yourself a very deep hole of credit card debt. Unfortunately, I actually know quite a few people have found themselves in that situation extremely quickly. Other things on this Schumer's box include like APR for transfers. If you're getting cash advances, that's even worse. Just don't do it. If you're taking cash that you already don't have and you're getting from a credit card, just bad idea. Don't do it. And yeah, there's like penalties. It also shows a grace period. So this is the amount of time that you have, in this case 28 days before.
How the fuck can you pay it off? I think it's 11,000. I gotta pay 300 plus pay off to make sure that I actually pay something off. Close the game, close the game. Some good games, dog. I had a win. Nigga don't have to play for 5 hours. Feel me? Man, look at these niggas. I deserve it all.